Well, Frank said, this is what the gentleman said in his broken English. I don't know about ghosts. I'm skeptical. But this is what the man said. I get a chill thinking about it. I told him I did too. Well, Frank went on, from this time onward, the man says he knew he was going to be all right. He knew he was going to persevere. And he vowed if he ever got out of that concentration camp, he would come to Springfield to thank Mr. Lincoln. Well, it took him 40 years to get there. The man's name was Henry Dubin, and I closed the book with his story, partly because it's as inspirational a story as you could hope for, but also it's a reminder of why, even though we may not be aware of it, Lincoln means so much to us, and a reminder of why we keep writing all these books about him. Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm opening it up for any questions, if there are any. I can't imagine why there would be, but. Yeah. Yes, sir.
In your book, you take a couple of shots at the so-called new history, and some of them, I think, are right on the mark. The new history you see as having failed in the interpretation of Abraham Lincoln. And yet, on the other hand, you also criticize the fun factory of the Lincoln Library in Springfield. In terms of trying to bring the Lincoln that you found so relevant at the end of the book to a public audience through, say, a museum, could you perhaps elaborate a little bit on what might be the right medium, the right middle ground for that?
The question is, he points out that in the book I'm quite critical of what's called the new history, or social history, and how I think that's failed in presenting Lincoln to the public. But on the other hand, if anybody's been to Springfield lately, they've opened this new museum to Lincoln, which was designed by a Disney designer and is filled with exploding cannons and a lot of high-tech stuff, and I'm sort of critical of that as well. So he's saying, well, what do you like? I guess is your question, what are you going to do? And I don't know. I think that it's clear that the approach to new history, I talk in here about the Chicago Historical Society, which was a great Lincoln institution up into the early 1980s, when it really gave itself over to the new history, and they took out the Lincoln Gallery. They had wonderful Lincoln stuff, and they put in various substitute exhibits that really were almost like an econometrics textbook. I mean, there were bills of lading and tons of statistics about, crop yields and all this kind of stuff. And as one of the people explained it to me, the idea is this is history about ordinary people, and ordinary people will come if you make history about ordinary people. Well, it turns out that's not true. Ordinary people, we run into each other all the time. You go to the mall, there are ordinary people just like us. And it turns out that when people go to a museum, what they want to see is something extraordinary. An extraordinary man like Lincoln, or an extraordinary event like the Civil War. And in that sense, I think, it's turned out at the Chicago Historical Society, the attendance plummeted, cut in half over the course of about 15 years, I think. So I'm not really sure what the technology should be or anything like that, and I'd love to have time to think about that more. But I do think that it has to center on history as presented to the public, has to give itself over to the dramatic, the extraordinary, the incident-filled history that hooks people.